So we have a recent story here that Square Enix has confirmed that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Final Fantasy XVI have both underperformed in their sales market performance. Obviously not very surprising. And the last time that I had anything to say about this particular topic was a few months ago, where basically I stated that the only way to save the Final Fantasy franchise at this point is for Square Enix to clean house and get rid of their upper level management and put their current producers that are in power at the company on the back burner. We have a statement from Square Enix, current Square Enix president Takashi Kiryu, who stated on record, "We released multiple new titles, including major titles such as Final Fantasy XVI and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but profits unfortunately did not meet our expectations." And the financial results were originally shared on May the 13th earlier this year. And this is months before the PC release of Final Fantasy XVI, which came out about 10 days ago as of this recording. "We did not manage our title portfolio across the company as well as we could have, which I believe resulted in opportunity losses due to cannibalization between our own titles." And so basically what he's saying is he believes that both games were released too close to each other, and this resulted in the games taking profits away, like one game taking profits away from the other, which doesn't make any sense because Final Fantasy XVI came out last year in June, I think it was in June. And then Final Fantasy VII Rebirth came out at the tail end of February earlier this year. So what he's saying really doesn't line up with common sense.
That's all he got from that, then they really are screwed.
Well, there's more to it. Square Enix's new multi-platform business strategy, which was publicized back in May, and I did make a video discussing why that strategy, this so-called new multi-platform strategy, is not going to work. It's their incentive, or it's their idea that if they release these games on multiple platforms day one, then they're going to sell better, which technically is true, but they're not going to sell to the degree that Square Enix is expecting, and I'm about to show why that is. Final Fantasy XVI came out on Steam, like I said, 10 days ago, on the 18th. Since then, we've gotten some stats, at least an estimation as to what the game has sold since then. So the game has, according to VG Insights, it has over 17,000 active players on Steam. It has scored just a little over 70% with positive reviews, and the game has grossed on Steam $7.8 million, but it's only sold about a little less than 200,000 units. According to Gamealytic, the game has been estimated to sell 278.7 thousand units and has grossed $12.5 million. Now, the numbers differ greatly between these two different sites, but again, these are just estimates. So if Final Fantasy XVI came out on PC day one, when the game originally came out on console last year, these are the numbers that it would have pulled. So
Rebirth isn't on PC yet, right?
Right, because that just came out earlier this year, so that won't come out on PC until next year at some point. Just going by the pattern of these things. But Final Fantasy XVI, it was believed that when this reporting started to come out months ago, that Square Enix, these games weren't doing so well and that their stock started to drop because of it. There were a lot of fanboys that obviously jumped on my channel saying, "Oh, you're wrong, you don't have any actual sales data." And it's like, I gave plenty of information to showcase that this game did not, Final Fantasy XVI and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth did not meet sales expectations. Most of the conversation on this topic, of course, was about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, more so than Final Fantasy XVI. Specifically regarding Final Fantasy XVI, basically what happened when the game came out on PS5 initially, Square Enix released a a positive sales metric, in which the game sold like 3 million copies within its first few weeks. I think within the first 3 weeks, and then after that they went silent. And obviously they went silent because the sales plummeted after that. This is the second major reporting for Final Fantasy 16 from Square Enix since. And as we can clearly see, even if the game was released on PC day one, it hasn't even sold 1 million copies yet. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth isn't going to do much better, and I'm going to show why that is. Alright, so Final Fantasy VII Remake on PC on Steam was released back in the middle of 2022. So the game's been out for 2 years on PC. It's only sold 1.1 million units, according to Gamealytic. Lifetime. We're talking lifetime sales. According to VG Insights, the number is about the same. And Final Fantasy VII Remake only sold, I think, around 7 million units was the last figure that Square Enix publicly released. This game, which is based off of, it's a remake of the most popular game in the series, has only sold 7 million units going on 4 years after its release. Rebirth, which is a sequel, is going to sell less, in part because it's a sequel. Sequels in the gaming industry typically sell less just in general. That's just like, it's basically a common rule. That the sequel is not going to sell as well as the as its predecessor. And again, it took 2 years for this game to sell this many units on Steam. This is just 1 million copies. That's not a huge figure for a series like Final Fantasy at the end of the day. But basically, what this boils down to is that we now have actual confirmed data that this so-called multi-platform strategy that Square Enix is trying to push, it's not going to work. Because clearly these are big budget games, and Square Enix is likely looking at 10 million lifetime unit sales for these Final Fantasy games. But they're not reaching 10 million units at all.
It's a shame they aren't even catching that too when they have a whole team dedicated for stuff like this.
Well, this just goes to show that, once again, everything that I've been saying about this topic makes me right. I've been correct. The series has fallen off in popularity because of the way it's been mishandled for years. Final Fantasy VII, the remake project in general, has been a complete failure. Originally, this is a game that was announced back in 2015. What Square Enix chose to do is make it a trilogy and then charge full price for each entry in the series. You gotta wait years and years for the next part instead of just releasing the whole thing at once, which is what they should have done. The original Final Fantasy VII is only a 30-hour game. So what they did was they took parts of Final Fantasy VII and just blew it up and just padded the whole thing out to basically be this giant mess of a game. What's resulted is diminishing returns and lack of interest with the sequel. And I can only imagine what Remake Part 3 is going to, what that's going to do. They've been trying to hype that up ever since Rebirth came out months ago.
They're going to put this in the graveyard, and it's like, what else will they have now?
Well,
Once this is over, it's like, what else?
That's a very good question. That's a very good point because, well, Final Fantasy in general, they really don't have a game plan. They change up the formula with each game. I don't know if Square Enix is going to learn their lesson with Final Fantasy 17 and actually drop the budget for that game. Either go with another action-based game that's aimed at a casual audience, or if they're going to, return the series back to its roots and try and go back to a turn-based style or something, similar or reminiscent. Maybe go with a hybrid system like they did with the remake, the Final Fantasy VII. Either way, whatever they do, it's guaranteed at this point because of the fact that Rebirth has basically flopped. Square Enix is never going to do a remake like this ever again. This is the last time that we are going to see a Final Fantasy remake of on this scale. They're never going to do anything like this ever again.
Mm-hmm.
And then to make matters worse, they decided to change the story and, you know, fuck with the original source material. It's not even really a remake. It's a sequel that was marketed as a remake, and they hid that information from players until the game actually came out, and then it became more obvious with Rebirth that this is not actually a remake of Final Fantasy VII. It's really a sequel trilogy to Final Fantasy VII with some stupid multiverse plot that they threw in there for some reason. Huge monolithic failure on the behalf of Square Enix. And I, for one, do not feel sorry for them in any way, shape, or form. They should be made fun of for this. And players should not reward their stupidity by purchasing these games. At this point, Final Fantasy is in the gutter. And it's not going to come back. That's the way I'm looking at it. Do you have any more thoughts about this particular story, Mike?
Uh, it's just fuck up after fuck up with them. Forspoken, the Avengers game. They're putting Final Fantasy in the ground, and they're really not learning their lesson at all. It's just, it's sad to see.
Well, I guess to add a little cherry on top, I thought to also bring this up. So Tetsuya Nomura, just out of nowhere, has come out recently as of this, either this story came out last week or this earlier this week. Either way, he's come out to say that he's considering retiring and that he plans to bring the Kingdom Hearts series to an end and intends to make Kingdom Hearts 4, I guess, act as the capper to that particular franchise. Now, I'm not really reading too much into this story. I really don't believe anything that comes out of Nomura's mouth for obvious reasons, because at first he said Kingdom Hearts 4, as this article states, will mark the beginning of an epic new storyline titled the Lost Master arc. More like the let's make up some more bullshit to sell more copies arc. But now he's saying, oh, well, I'm getting old. My dick doesn't work as much as it used to. So now it's time to throw in the towel. And Kingdom Hearts, yeah, y'all ain't going to have too much Kingdom Hearts going forward. And if you ask me, he should have just ended it with Kingdom Hearts 3. Should have been over.
I left a bad taste in everyone's mouth.
You'd be surprised at how many people have jumped the ship, jumped the Kingdom Hearts ship after Kingdom Hearts 3. Which is why I was, I wasn't surprised that they announced the fourth game. I was surprised that they had the balls to make a fourth game after the disaster that was Kingdom Hearts 3. So, yeah, what do you think about this, Mike?
I actually agree with you. They should have just ended it off on 3. But yeah, you could probably take this with a grain of salt.
Yeah. The only thing I'll say about Kingdom Hearts 4 is that probably the only way I would buy this game is if they threw in The Incredibles. That's about it. Because that's probably about the only Disney IP that they haven't done that I would probably consider a purchase for. Outside of that, I don't give a fuck anymore, dude. Like, I really don't. And it's
ran its course.
Yeah, it has. It has. Kingdom Hearts, in all honesty, as good as Kingdom Hearts 2 was, in reality, that was the beginning of the end for the series. From a story perspective, because it just got ridiculous, and it continued to get even more ridiculous with each subsequent game. Hell, even before Kingdom Hearts 2, you could go to Chain of Memories. That shit got started to get stupid from that point, going forward, and it just became more obvious that this guy was just winging it and just making up whatever random bullshit with each subsequent game. I'd imagine that Tetsuya Nomura has his, obviously he must have his own office at Square Enix headquarters, and he must have like a fucking bong in that bitch and some fucking, he must have some molly, stocked up somewhere. Motherfucker must smoke like crazy up in that bitch, because that's the only way you would come up with some stupid shit like what's in the Kingdom Hearts series, What's even worse about Kingdom Hearts 3, right, is that this dude, he was originally on Final Fantasy 15. Square Enix, they took him off Final Fantasy 15 so he could finish Kingdom Hearts 3. That's when Hajime Tabata took over Final Fantasy 15 and had to try and basically scramble together a product that was already in development hell. He basically had to take Nomura's mess and try and fix it as much as possible. And that resulted in some diminished quality with that particular game. Tetsuya Nomura, he didn't learn this lesson because he figured, well, since I couldn't finish Final Fantasy 15, I'll just take the main character of Final Fantasy 15, slap a different name on him, give him a slightly different outfit, basically call him a different character, and I'll put him in Kingdom Hearts 3 for DLC. So the character, what's that fucking character's name? Yeah, so I'll just take Noctis and I'll just redesign him, give him a different name, and I'll put him in Kingdom Hearts.
Makes no sense at all.
Yeah, this man needs to go ahead and retire. Go ahead and call it a day. Go ahead and take a nice long nap. Step down. Have someone else take your place. Because this shit is a no-go for me personally. Like this shit is just it's not going to work. So, but that just goes to the show where Square Enix is at these days. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. The only people that really care about this franchise are like a very hardcore minority. Yeah, it's not going to come back. The Final Fantasy series ran its course. Its peak, its golden age for that particular franchise was Final Fantasy 6 and Final Fantasy 7. And it's just slowly died a slow death ever since then in terms of quality. Now they're releasing games that can't even really be considered as an RPG. Like Final Fantasy 16, you could barely call that fucking game an RPG. It doesn't really have any RPG systems in it. It's primarily an action game with a Final Fantasy skin. Yeah. I'm not really interested going forward, to be fully honest with you. So.
That's really.
Yeah. Oh well.